Welcome to another installment of This Is Not Normal on the Political Drain podcast with Drill Sergeant Doug, aka Admin Doug, a U.S. Army veteran, teacher, musician, and family man from Jamaica, now fights for justice and democracy through commentary and humor. Follow him on YouTube at Political Drain and at Sons of Liberty Official as Drill Sergeant, aka Admin Doug, continues to protect our freedoms.
I was out there crying when I seen the little girl come around the corner. Because they was bringing the kids out too. Had them zip tied to each other. That's all I kept asking. Where's the morality? Where's the human? One of them literally laughed. He was standing right here. He said, them kids. Them kids. Them kids.
You thought I wasn't going to talk about Chicago? What's up, YouTube? Drill Sergeant here. And Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. Donald Trump is a PDF file. Donald Trump is a disgusting, horrible abuser of women and children. And this story will not distract me from that, no matter how much he wishes it would. But yeah, what you heard in the beginning, that's only the beginning. That's only the beginning of this story. I don't have anything written down, so allow me to try to get through everything that I'm thinking. And at the end, of course, there's a call to action. But this call to action and this lesson in the story and the context that I plan on providing, because that's what this channel does, it starts very dark and it's going to get darker. And by the time I get to my call to action, it's going to probably reach a place where many of you will not be able to stomach or hear. Now is your chance to leave if you're not ready to hear the necessity of what needs to be done. If you would rather peacefully protest and beat drums and hold signs, I stand with you. But this message is not for you. You can leave now if you're not ready to stomach the grotesque history and context of what we're about to get into, exemplified by what happened in Chicago on September 30th. Ready? Go. Now, let's start from the beginning. I'm going to be using Katie Fang's reporting because it just so happens to be good. I have no affiliation, and I don't care what she's done in the past or before. This time it was good, so that's what I'm using. Because there's things that are mentioned there that you need to hear. Number one, when the lady in the beginning said, F them kids, is what those people in uniform and masks said, with badges and no warrants said, F them kids, watching them cry, children, because they're black. And if nobody told you that, I'm going to tell you that. Because if anybody is telling you it's anything other than that, they're a fucking lie. They're lying to you. Because they're black. F them kids. Because they're animals. What's worse is this is only the beginning. You want to know? You want to know why I know? How I know? I did a story about this. It's called Gaza. You see, over there, they've got their soldiers so trained to believe that children are just animals and killing them is fun. Destroying their lives is fun because they're just going to grow up to be terrorists anyway. They've got people, white people in this country so effed up. It's only about 20% of them, but that's enough. That they too can look at children crying, dying, maimed, brutalized, destroyed, crushed, bleeding, crumpled, stepped on, urinated on, and laugh. And you'll say to yourself, man, you're already starting dark. How's it going to get darker? It will! Because it's time to talk about the truth. Chicago is just the example. Yeah, I lived there once, so yeah, it hits hard. But more importantly, I talked about this a year ago in Project 2025. I talked about this. I said what they had coming. and the type of dehumanization that they had written down. So when that guy said, F those kids, that's not just something that should horrify you because it's a bad thing and he's disgusting. What it is it is the beginning of the mind change, of the policy change, of soldiering and policing. These guys that are there, these ICE agents, these federal agents, they're hand-picked. That's also in Project 2025. That when I put out, all these pussy-ass fucking Democrats told me, why are you fear-mongering? We have guardrails for that. What we don't have guardrails for is the inevitability that when you expose a human being to enough disgusting things, to enough debauchery, they become desensitized to it. And when your leaders are narcissists, sociopaths, your military or your armed force or whatever it is they're using will follow suit. The story that I said that I did about this, listen.
Are you in the IDF?
Yes.
Do you plan on kids in the future, Palestinian kids?
I want to Gaza. I don't care about the kids. I don't care about the civilians. I don't care about them.
So you'll bomb them? You'll bomb the civilians? And you'll...
Yes, I will bomb Gaza. I will destroy Gaza.
Wow. There are 1 million kids in Gaza. You want them to...
I want all Gaza.
You want half of Gaza are children. You want them to die.
I want to bomb Gaza. I want to make it a mall.
Are you joking or is this how you actually feel?
No, I'm dead serious.
You are very serious? You want all of Gaza to be gone?
Yes.
You want the 1 million kids in Gaza, the children, the babies, you want them to die?
All the children there will die. I don't care.
You're evil. You're disgusting. And you think this is normal. The way you're talking to me right now is that you were expecting me to agree with you because you have been taught since a young age that this is normal. The indoctrination is insane. There is a problem with you and your society. You need help. Free Palestine.
That's just that one part. YouTube, that's one part. I want you to understand what's happening there because when I give my call to action and it does not involve picket signs, you will understand why. I feel like I need to get there first. So maybe when I say what needs to be done, you will listen and not recoil. The inevitability that that person and that crew and everybody that showed up in these U-Haul vans, like daggone three percenters and Patriot at front, like as if they're not actually police and ICE agents. The inevitability that all of them will become that guy that you just saw, like all of his friends in the military in Israel are, after enough brainwashing. The inevitability of that. It's not a question of if, it's when. In Chicago, the when is now. He said it. That's it. That's it. That's it. Fuck them kids. Their tears mean nothing. That's the first part of the dark history and the context of this one story. Here's the second part. Listen to this.
That raid happened in those early morning hours. I want you to listen to what the residents say. I want you to listen to how they described that event.
I spoke to one woman who actually lives in this building, and she says she was detained by ICE agents overnight, and she says they took everyone and then asked questions later.
They just treated us like we were nothing.
Patricia Fisher says she came out to the hallway of her apartment complex on the corner of 75th and South Shore Drive in her nightgown around 10 Monday night, only to find ICE agents yelling police.
It was scary because I've never had a gun put in my face. They asked my name and my date of birth and asked me did I have any warrants, and I told them no, I didn't.
She says she was then handcuffed and released around 3 a.m. Fisher says she was told if anyone had any kind of warrant out for them, even if it was unrelated to immigration, they would not be released. Citizen App video shows the chaotic scene overnight. Neighbors tell us there were dozens of ICE agents. Neighbors like Ebony Watson says they ducked for cover as they heard several flashbangs go off.
They was terrified. The kids was crying. People was screaming. They looked very distraught. I was out there crying when I seen the little girl come around the corner. Because they was bringing the kids out too. Had them zip tied to each other.
Did you hear what that woman said? Terrified, crying children, zip tied to each other.
What you have there, YouTube, is not just a disgusting recounting of an event. It's not just the overreaching of the law. It's not just illegal acts done by the state against its citizens. What you have there is a repeat of history. I stopped it where I stopped it because I want you to understand the visual of chaining humans together, shackling them, shackling black people together. Children. Does that bring anything to mind? Here's what it looks like.
Numbering around 20, arrived in Point Comfort, Virginia, aboard a Dutch ship. This event, though small in scale, set the stage for the systematic enslavement of Africans in the American colonies.
So now point two, the context, the dark history is not just slavery. It's not just, they're treating black people like that. And we knew it was coming because we're always at the bottom end of that totem pole. More importantly, how it ties back to point one is you do that to people when you're dehumanizing them. You shackle their legs and arms. You shackle them together so they have no individuality. It's things that happen in prison. It's the reason why you're given a number and not a name. All of these things are psychological assaults on the human being. But on the person doing it, it shows you that they have already dehumanized the person. And you know what happens when you shackle people together and you treat them like animals because you've already dehumanized them? Here's what that looks like.
In one particularly chilling diary entry, Frank wrote about the Jewish question with horrifying casualness. We must annihilate the Jews wherever we find them and whenever it is possible. His own words sealed his fate at Nuremberg, proving beyond doubt his direct involvement in the Holocaust. The diaries also revealed Frank's twisted psychology. He viewed himself as a cultured administrator, bringing civilization to Poland.
Our ancestors built the cities. They produced the art and architecture. They built the industry. He raised up industry, raised up civilization, who pulled us out of the caves and the darkness into the light. The light will defeat the dark.
You say, how could it get any darker, Drill Sergeant? Goddamn, you just started. The first point, you took us straight to Gaza and murdering children. The second point, you went straight to Nazi Germany. And it gets worse because that's the past. So when I get to my call to action, there should be no question as to why it is what it is. So I have more. Point number 3. Listen to what she says here in her good reporting.
Agents approached or entered nearly every single apartment in that 5-story building, and United States citizens were detained for hours. One gentleman who was interviewed, Dan Jones, jolted awake at 1 a.m. in the morning with federal agents trying to bust down his door. They couldn't get through the double bolts, and so they left. When he gets home from work, he finds all of his electronics, all of his furniture missing, all of his clothes and shoes thrown and strewn about on the floor. Nobody is answering his questions from local law enforcement. He has no idea where his shit is now.
They couldn't get in to get their hard on and their blue balls taken care of. That's what that is. They get sexual fulfillment out of destroying people. That's what this type of straight up psychopathy is. They enjoy the pain. They enjoy the control. They enjoy the rape. Mentally or physically. It's only a matter of time. And what point 3 is about, why it's important, why the context is important, is because that is called revenge. In the system that we have, revenge isn't allowed. Justice is. Justice is according to the rules set by society or voted on by society, the punishment or the consequence for disobeying them. Revenge is the satisfaction of an individual. That's why revenge is not justice. What they did when they came back the next day was enact their revenge. Revenge is a sort of control that an individual or an entity has. Justice is the control that the society has on itself, its own policing. That's justice. That's why we pay our police officers with our money. That's why we pay the government with our money. The idea is the justice that's handed out has been voted on by us and has a processes that went by us first. Revenge is an entity that has taken out their own satisfaction, whether or not someone's guilty or innocent, and without that processes on their own, because that gives them power. You want to know what that looks like?
The woman at the center of one of the most notorious murders in America's civil rights history has died. Carolyn Bryant's accusation led to the killing of 14-year-old Emmett Till in Mississippi in 1955. And nearly 70 years on, there is still no justice. Bryant had said Till came into her store in Money, Mississippi and touched her and insulted her. A story that's always been questioned, with reports she made it all up. A few days later, Bryant's husband and half-brother abducted Till, tortured him, shot him in the head, and dumped his body in the river. Till's mother decided to have an open casket funeral so that America could see what the racism of the South had done to her son. The two men did go on trial, but an all-white jury found them not guilty. They later both admitted they'd killed Till, but they were now protected by double jeopardy. Till's family always sought justice, and they wanted Carolyn Bryant to be punished for her role in his abduction and his killing. But last year, a grand jury looked back into the case and decided not to indict her. Civil rights activists now fear that her death means there will never be any justice for Till or his family.
You say, goddamn, Drill Sergeant? But you said it was going to get dark. We're only on point number 3. That's okay, I only have one more.
And I almost forgot. Before I get to point 4, there was another point in there that I needed to say, and that was the propaganda. The propaganda, like Goebbels did in Germany. You see, watch this.
Now, isn't it funny? These 300 federal agents allowed News Nation to tag along and film while they were doing all of this. And this gentleman, this Army veteran who went blind recently, said, "My nerves were shook. I was trying to protect myself."
That's why they brought those cameras, and it didn't just start with Newsmax cameras. On government websites, right now, you have people of color in chains being sent off to jails and prisons in unnamed countries with no oversight and no humanity. They're put up there on government websites as propaganda, as something to be praised, as celebratory videos with great rock songs in the background. Closing time with soft guitars in the background, like Goebbels used to have when he would show on movie screens the abominations that the soldiers would do, put in the light of bravery. And look at how good we're doing on the war front. They've been doing that. They have an entire media system. Newsmax was there. They invited them so that they could promote it like a big time Avengers movie. That's how that 20% grows to 30% and it becomes normal. Yeah. That's the point before 4, now 4.
Point number 4, Project 2025. Well, what does that have to do with it? Well, because what we saw in Chicago there, that debauchery, the overshow of military might on innocent civilians, on not caring about whether or not you're documented or anything, just as long as you are colored. This time, it was showing all you black people where you belong. The reason why Project 2025 is a giant point in what this is because not only is it a fulfillment of it, but it's in a long line of continuations. Since all the rest of them have come true, I have to prove it to you.
The Conservative Promise lays out how to use many of these tools, including how to fire supposedly unfireable federal bureaucrats, how to shutter wasteful and corrupt bureaus and offices, how to muzzle woke propaganda at every level of government, Think about this. How to muzzle woke propaganda. And I remind you that woke still has no definitive and objective meaning. If you're a conservative now and you think that muzzling woke ideas without definitions is okay because it only is going to hurt them, the others, understand that every authoritarian government said the same things to get power. And when all the scary wokeness is gone, they turned it on the people that voted for them and changed the definitions in order to keep power. That's how it works.
Proof? You never defined DEI before you voted for him.
When you go back and you look at the people who voted Trump in, 52% of white women voted for Trump. The ironic part of it all, one of the first people that he fired, she was the first female uniformed leader of an armed forces branch. She was fired from her position, her initiative to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. So for all you white women who voted for Trump, you're welcome.
You never defined waste, fraud, and abuse, did you?
I was a Trump supporter. You know, when he talks about government waste and all that, yes, I'm behind it. I believe there is a lot of stuff in the government that needs fixing. I thought that someone with like his business acumen would have come in with a fine-tooth comb and actually found it instead of coming in with a wrecking ball and destroying people's lives.
We clear?
When I showed the generals having to gather and give an oath to their king, to their new emperor, Lord God, as opposed to their constitution, we saw our version of that a few days ago, didn't we?
As you have seen, and the media has obsessed over, I have fired a number of senior officers since taking over. The previous chairman, other members of the Joint Chiefs, combatant commanders, and other commanders. We all serve at the pleasure of the president.
We all serve at the pleasure of the president.
Thank you very much, Pete. A great job you're doing, too. Fantastic job. I've never walked into a room so silent before. This is very... Don't laugh. You're not allowed to do that. You know what? Just have a good time. And if you want to applaud, you applaud. And if you want to do anything you want, you can do anything you want. And if you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave the room. Of course, there goes your rank. There goes your future.
If you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave the room. Of course, there goes your rank, there goes your future.
Every admiral, we have great people. We have our real warriors over there. And when they're not good, when we don't think they're our warriors, you know what happens? We say you're fired. Yet when we don't think they're our warriors...
When we don't think they're our warriors...
When I showed you that the concentration camps were coming, we saw that with Alligator Alcatraz, didn't we? I have another prediction for you.
Promise 1. Restore the family at the center place of American life and protect our children. A. The next conservative president must make the institutions of American civil society hard targets for woke culture warriors. This starts with deleting the terms sexual orientation and gender identity, diversity, equity, and inclusion, gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness, gender sensitive, abortion, reproductive health, reproductive rights, and any other term used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights out of every federal rule, agency, regulation, contract, grant, and any piece of legislation that exists. And what was just said? In order to preserve free speech, that's the First Amendment, we will erase every word we don't like. I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to let you think about it. In order to preserve free speech, we will erase every word we don't like from every law that exists. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at some of those words and see if we can reasonably find any concerns. Reproductive health, regulation, and any piece of legislation that exists. So, no regulations on the treatment of menstrual bleeding then. The cleanliness and the sanitation of gynecologists' offices. Well, what about lactation specialists for breastfeeding, or, God forbid, the regulation of the breast milk donated from recently birthing mothers for the use of millions of mothers who have trouble breastfeeding for the first few weeks, and that keeps their babies alive? I'm just kidding. Like women are actually people. No, for real now. Okay, let's get to the people that actually matter. Let's talk about erectile dysfunction medication. No regulations on that? It might work, it might not. Huh? What about low testosterone treatment or low sperm count? Well, who needs kids anyway? What about castration? Well, you see, if you delete regulation on reproductive health in any piece of legislation that exists, Castration is legal as long as a doctor, or if you're under 18, a parent, says it's the right thing to do. Look, the political gaming on what women can or can't do, or whether or not abortion is murder or not, is not what I care about in this document. Believe it or not. And it's not because I don't care, it's because it's just another thing used to divide us. I promised you a one-to-one comparison, and this is what it looks like when you delete the terms reproductive health, reproductive rights, and regulations in any piece of legislation that exists. And that language goes way past abortion laws and trans people on your swimming team. This is what it looks like.
They were gruesome, painful treatments. Beastly. The intense pain erased all feeling.
My name is Professor Karl Klauberg. I performed forced sterilizations. From March 1943 to January 1945, I subjected 280 women to trials. 150 were sterilized according to my method.
I'm campaigning against practice female genital mutilation, and I start the campaign. What has happened to many other women who today cannot have babies, who have died already for bleeding, who have been faced the consequence of the female genital mutilation today. It's a silent killer.
I don't think that's what most voters would agree with.
Yeah. With the way that they've already dehumanized, shackled, in long lines, feet and hands, like cows to the slaughter. With the way that they've already dehumanized within themselves, gotten comfortable. Fuck them kids. They no longer see them as human. And with the way that they have with efficiency gone through every other piece of Project 2025, I ask you, when you hear about Tylenol causes autism and commercials talking about who has good genes or not, how long do you think those kids won't be test tube animals? Those black people won't be test tube animals. How long do you think those people in the concentration camps won't be slaves and test tube animals? How long do you think before you're sterilized? How long do you think before you're tested on because you're a different color and 30% of the country believes you're an animal? Because they're so embarrassed right now with what they see, they only have one choice, and that is to just accept it and act like it's not that bad. Because they're so afraid of saying I was wrong, because it would make them look stupid. And it means that they would have to recognize that the thing that they have done to this country is unforgivable and beg for forgiveness anyway. And that's hard for some people to do. Some are changing. You can change, but it's not about you. This is about the police force and the state violence in Chicago. Now that you know that you are not human to them, and now that you know that they will do to you what they did in Gaza with those same people, you heard their words. And not only do you know that one time we know what it's like, we knew what it's like, we still have it in our genes, that memory of humiliation of being shackled and chained together and seen as animals and only of use in service to others. And you've seen in point 3 that revenge is now on the table and legal, so justice is nullified. The next time I hear someone say, well, definitely peacefully we're gonna do that, I say, you're a fucking idiot if you do. You see? Those same gangs that they love to talk about in Chicago, let me give you a history on it. There were chapters of the Black Panthers and other organizations that I will not name that ended up trickling down into what was called the P Stones. Those people found criminal enterprise as the only way to make money to buy the weapons they needed to police their communities. Because of racism, overt and covert, because of systemic racism, the jobs left. The dehumanization continued. And the peace stones and a few others I will not mention broke down into some of the gangs that are there now that have lost their way and have just become criminal enterprises. I'm not an idiot, I know that. But you now have a chance to take back your namesakes. You don't like that? Turn it off. Hey, gangs, it's time to pick up the mantle by which you were designed.
What do you think when you hear about the history of gangs and the impact they had on the community?
Well, to my knowledge, I think that, from our culture, the Crips and Bloods started out as a Black Panther movement or came right after the Black Panther movement. So I think that it was to protect the community.
Yes, I said it. You see, Larry Hoover, who started the Gangster Disciples, you would be surprised how many people loved him because what he was trying to do was in a desperate situation with no looking away or out or back in. He found a way to police his community, and the police couldn't fuck with them. They were scared. They didn't come there. And that power bred what we see now. I know what it is. I'm not trying to tell you it's not that. You seem to think that I care. When gangs sponsored by the state, I don't care about the other ones in the streets. Fight back.
The push continues tonight to free Larry Hoover. The former gang leader was convicted of running his gang operation in the 90s while he was behind bars for murder in 1973. Yesterday, President Donald Trump commuted his federal sentence.
Now, why do you think he did that, GDs? Will you allow that to buy you? Or will you reclaim your namesake, police your own community?
We weren't interested in being social workers dealing with all the bad things that they were involved in. We were interested in teaching that leadership to do positive things out in the community.
Our main goal at the beginning was to diffuse the violence, begin some positive alternatives, and to accept the reality of the organized structure that the gangs have and try to direct it in a positive and constructive way. And obviously that became very controversial.
Divert your leadership skills to that of powerful freedom fighters. Turn your people into saviors rather than what these folks want to say, that you need to be saved.
Fight back! Because you don't have the state's resources, but what you do have is knowledge of the territory, of the buildings, of the streets, of the best corners. They're dropping out of Black Hawk helicopters. I bet you there's some holes in the walls of some of those neighborhoods that you've already crawled through. You know where those are. They don't. Use it now. You see, protest, civil disobedience, the picket signs, all of that is necessary. That's not what you're dealing with now in Chicago. Now it's self-defense. There's no warrant. They stole from you, sir, in a vengeant raid. They violated your child, ma'am. Dehumanization, systemic, and laughed at. And what comes next, you don't want to see. I've seen it. If you don't want that to happen to you, I'd say, hey, gangster disciples, vice lords, huh? Sup, Latin kings, where you at? Take back your namesake. Use it for something. Find out why you were invented in the first place. Be the security. Stand on the roof. If nobody's doing anything illegal to you, nobody should have any worries about that. Everywhere else you can pick it. Before you touch my daughter again, and you chain my people again, and you bring your state-sponsored gang to break my windows again, and flood my streets again, and before you do something worse to my kids, because I know y'all are nasty like that. That's why I ain't seen no Epstein files yet. How many of them handcuffed black girls did you look at while laughing and say, fuck that? In which way did you mean that word, sir? It's only a matter of time. I've seen it. I know it. I know it well. And I, for one, would do anything to avoid it. When justice can be had, then we can have it. As long as vengeance is the name of the game, I say, find your namesake. Chicago gangs, find it. Police your neighborhood. Watch out. Give the call. Know the area. Show the maps. And the best outcome that could possibly happen is when they do show up again, because they will. And they'll have more lust in their eyes when they do. Because it never gets better, only worse. And when they do come back, the best that can happen is maybe you will have already had such a good watch on your place that they will have no one to arrest. And they'll just find it empty when they get there. Worst case scenario is you defend yourself. You remind them why we had to go to the extent and the lengths we had to go to stay safe. That has turned into criminal enterprise because of poverty and miseducation and diseducation and lack of education, where I know those places in Chicago, the schools were closed down years ago. I'm not even sure how kids are getting educated there. There are 5 that I know of that are gone. So while you get mad at the gangs, remember that homicides and killings in Chicago have gone down 50% in the past 4 years. Somehow they've picked themselves up off the bootstraps, and you want to bring the war back to them. No, we don't have a Department of War in Chicago. You guys get together. Hey, GDs, VLs, all the rest of you that I don't even know the names of anymore, all of you, why don't we get together and have a purpose this time? Say we're going to police our communities. And when the threat is gone, you can get back to what you're doing.
I can speak specifically, especially when it comes to the gang culture in Chicago. I feel like the dudes that raised us, they gave us certain amounts of laws, wisdom, stuff that just moral conduct. In the streets, you know what I'm saying? This is too far. You ain't if you do this, that's a violation, and you gonna pay for it. And I don't think we in my generation, when it came to the Chicago culture, really sat down and took that time. You gotta take time with these youngins, man.
You gotta be consistent.
You gotta be consistent.
So allow me to be the one. Excuse me for speaking out of turn, King. I apologize. I haven't been there in a long time. I'm probably not coming back there. But I believe in you. I believe that you can join them up. I believe you already have. That's why that crime rate has gone down. I believe you're seeing something in yourselves that you couldn't get in the schools that they closed down. I believe if you join up now and become your namesake, the fruits and rewards would be way more than you've ever imagined or gotten by being rivals. And when the old heads forgot to talk to you like they spoke to us, I apologize for that. So I'm talking to you now, if it means anything.
If you're not there, and you don't see why it's necessary, I hope you'll watch this again and find out. Hope you'll see the clips of the things that I've showed you that are proof of what this leads to. And I hope that the words of that guy who said, fuck them kids, will spark something in you that you didn't have before. It's called reality. For everyone else, do not take the bait. It's not the same. There's a vast difference to what happened in Chicago. An entire building under siege, dehumanized, vengeance brought back the next day. There's a big difference. They have to start thinking about defending themselves in order to live. For the rest of us, tomorrow, we fight. Hey, yeah, you. Before you click away to watch someone unbox a tactical toothbrush, let's talk about something real. Political Drain isn't just another content mill. We're a digital front in a very real war. Not with bullets, but with ideas, with action, and with solidarity. We pair urgent news with critical education. And we build community around actual resistance, not the hashtag kind. The kind that moves. But here's the thing. None of this is free. It isn't. Behind every video is time, labor, research, and some weird guy asking if we're going to pay the hosting bill. And yeah, some of that money goes to things we can't necessarily say out loud. If you know, you know. Let's just say our special ops aren't Call of Duty LARPers. They're people making real moves to protect, uplift, and organize. You're not just funding a channel. You're funding a resistance network in a world where capital still calls the shots. Unfortunately, in a system built on artificial scarcity, even mutual aid has a price tag. And if we want to grow, if we want to win, we need your help. We need your help. So if you've got even a few bucks to spare, toss it our way. It's not for ads. It's not for merch drops, but for people making moves in the shadows so others can do it in the light. It's just us and you. So fund the mission, fund the fight, fund the future, because nobody's coming to save us. We save each other. That's how this works. Follow us on all these things you see here, and our link tree is in the description. Maybe even get some merch.
That was the Political Drain podcast, which can be heard on www.groovechillradio.com/political-drain and can be viewed on the Political Drain YouTube channel anytime. Once again, thank you for listening to Groove Chill as we resist fascism in any form, pursue democracy, peace, and love.